is no play here, Bird. This is just one of the game's greatest players of all time.
Safe to say the kid get older. Forever gang, I'm never switching over. Made a lane and niggas can't get over. I can't mess with rappers, they be bogus. Rather get the pack and keep it open. Big dripper stand up in the ocean. Everybody trapping, we get lost. He ain't focused yet, but he ain't got motion. Made a half a ticket, not promotion. Shout out Switch and Sweet and keep me rolling. But if we get the out, we gotta slow. Ride around with Drake, like we LVO. I got some rats and I want some. Still got a pass in the hood, call it give and go. Keep a nigga, man, bitch in the figure four. Let me fuck when I want, I just come and go. Man, these rap too deep for these skinny clothes. I might put me in him in some picture boat. They look great, this nigga start getting low. I spent time on the rest on the Lambo and didn't even know how to move.
Yo, what's good with y'all, man? It's Sorbo Hoops, and you already know we about to be talking about some hoops. Y'all see the title of today's video, and we're about to be going over the NBA's clutchest shots for every NBA franchise. Now, if I was to put this all in one video, counting the East and the West, it would be a pretty long damn video. A quick disclaimer for any old heads that might end up watching this, but do not expect any clips from the 50s or 60s, because for one, a nigga was not born at that time, and two, on the internet, there is barely any solid footage of basketball around that period. And before we get into each shot, of course, each franchise has their handful of several clutch shots in playoff history, but in this video and in the next video I will make on the Western Conference, we will only be going over the clutch shots that were responsible for that franchise's deepest playoff run, and the ones that have some of the highest degree of difficulty in the attempt, along with some of the wildest narratives that played a role in these series themselves. So without further ado, let's finally get into the first shot of this video. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, because a nigga did a lot of research for this video, not gonna lie. To start off the video, we're going to start off with something light, and that's going to be game one of the first round of the 2021 playoffs, when Trae Young hit a very clutch floater against the Knicks on May 23rd of 2021. This shot gave Atlanta a 2-point lead, leaving the Knicks with only 0.9 seconds to score in the other end. He put up an amazing stat line of 32 points and 10 assists, while only hitting one three-pointer on the night and terrorizing the Knicks defense with pick and roll offense throughout the entire series, and destroying any Knicks defender they put in front of him in isolation, despite them being ranked a top 5 defense this season. This game was essentially the welcome party for Trae Young in the NBA postseason, and with his play in this series and the rest of the playoffs, had catapulted his name amongst the NBA's most elite guards. That shot and performance was also what played a role in the origin story behind his nickname at MSG, which is the Villain. And with Trae Young's taunts and amazing performances, it played a large part in killing the playoff hopes of Knicks fans who hadn't made the playoffs up until that point in the season until 8 or 7 years prior, which is why them niggas hate him every time he plays at MSG.
You are in the garden, you might as well take a bow.
June 1st, 1994 is widely remembered as a day in the basketball world where Reggie Miller scored 25 points in the fourth quarter while shit-talking Spike Lee and destroying his favorite team in a Game 5 crucial win against the Knicks in the conference finals to give his team the lead in the series. This would come back to bite him in the ass when in this game he put up the choke gesture, reminding Spike Lee who he was fucking with, because Indiana was in the middle of a comeback, erasing a 12-point deficit from earlier in the game. But they also lose the series that year to the Knicks in the conference finals in 7 games, which would only lead me to what happens in the playoff series against the two playoff rivals in the year after, where we witnessed one of the greatest scoring blitzes of all time on May 7th, 1995, in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs of Game 1 at MSG. Reggie Miller decided to pull off one of the greatest comebacks in leading his team by scoring 8 points in 9 seconds. And this ain't even just one clutch bucket. This is a series of buckets. And pay attention to this man's full court defense in transition. Yeah, some of it is hacking. You could say he definitely tripped that nigga too on that play, but like, the hustle was there on both ends, and he willed his team to the W with this playoff victory, a crushing Game 1 win, where it almost seemed like the game was over. So let me shut the hell up for a second so y'all can enjoy greatness for the final seconds of this game in one of the clutchest shots in Indiana Pacers playoff basketball history against one of their greatest playoff rivals of the 90s.
And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line and hits again. Tie game. Miller's going to make, after he sets the screen, he steps behind, makes the first jumper. On the inbound pass, full timeout. Starks misses. okay for the Pacers.
Starks misses, batted around. Ewing has it, his shot, no good. Reggie Miller the rebound and a foul with 7.5 seconds.
It was at this moment that he knew he fucked up.
Alright, so for the Charlotte Hornets, there ain't many seasons where they made deep playoff runs, as most NBA fans would know, so like, a nigga had to do some digging for this one. In the early 1990s, a rookie Larry Johnson and Alonzo Mourning catapulted a up-and-coming and struggling franchise in the Charlotte Hornets to its very first playoff appearance against the end of a dynasty Boston Celtics, in which Kevin McHale played his last NBA game. In his rookie season, Alonzo Mourning was largely responsible for hitting a shot that sent a 35-year-old Kevin McHale into retirement. Not only did Alonzo Mourning hit the game-winning shot in this Game 4, but they also swept the Celtics, and he ended the game with 33 points, 6 blocks, and 7 rebounds. Of 2001, we witnessed the NBA's best shooting guards outside of Kobe, two superstars in their prime in Allen Iverson and Vince Carter, who were widely known for carrying their franchises to the postseason, go against each other in the second round of the Eastern Conference playoffs in a heated 7-game series, which consisted of a 54-point performance from Allen Iverson in Game 2, a 50-point performance following that in Game 3 from Vince Carter, and in a response from Allen Iverson, the answer himself, a 52-point performance in Game 5. But if we do a little backtracking in that series to Game 4, Toronto held a 2-1 lead in the playoff series, and in Game 4, while it was inefficient nights from both superstar guards who were both shooting well under 40% from the field this night, Toronto was storming back from a 16-point deficit. Allen Iverson hit a very clutch three-pointer to quiet the momentum, and the rest was history, as Iverson had just hit one of the clutchest shots of the night on one of the biggest competitors at his position in the league, and it was a contested shot right in Carter's face, along with carrying the momentum from that game through the rest of the series to close out Toronto in 7 games. Iverson continued to backpack his team to the finals that season despite his roster's pieces being very lackluster, which had marked Philly's reappearance in the finals since the 1983 season. On May 18th of 2023, two of the best teams in the Eastern Conference had faced off against each other, with the New Jersey Nets being the 2nd seed and the Pistons being the 1st seed. Both of these teams were top 5 defenses. This was Jason Kidd's 2nd season with the New Jersey Nets, fresh off of a finals appearance the year prior where they got swept by the Lakers, and this was Billup's 1st season with the Detroit Pistons. In a wire-to-wire matchup in a series of 2 premier point guards, Kidd had ended Game 1 on a series opener that Chauncey Billups would never forget. When waiting and patiently eyeing the clock for its final seconds, goes to the right wing of the floor and takes a step back deep mid-range shot over 2 of the Pistons defenders, who happened to be Chauncey Billups and Mehmet Okur, and the Nets went on to eventually sweep the Pistons in this series and make their 2nd back-to-back finals appearance, cementing one of their greatest shots in the Nets playoff history, with a low percentage jump shot coming from their best player in Jason Kidd. And with the final score of 76-74, this was a wildly inefficient night from both teams, as the Nets were shooting 39% from the field and the Pistons were shooting 35%. One of the 6 players that scored double figures that night in Jason Kidd, who was undoubtedly the best player in that series, had ended the night scoring 15 points, grabbed 9 rebounds, and dished out 7 assists, while getting also 3 steals and shooting an abysmal 5 of 18 from the field before taking his final shot in Game 1 at the Palace. May 20th, 2009, Rashard Lewis hit one of the clutchest threes of his career in the midst of one of LeBron's best seasons of all time, where he carried Cleveland to their best franchise regular season record of 66-16. And in the Game 1 of this series, he had 49 points in a series where they were the heavy favorites against a young Orlando Magic team who were the 3rd seeds of the Eastern Conference. Not to mention that around this time, NBA media was really hyping up a LeBron versus Kobe in a final series. So Orlando had a clear chip on their shoulder being the underdogs. The Magic managed to pull out a win in a close victory, where Rashard Lewis hits a 3, leaving 14 seconds on the clock for Cleveland to score on the opposing end, and coincidentally hitting just as clutch of a 3-pointer in Game 4. Either way, moral of the story is that Rashard Lewis was that nigga and was clutch as hell in his heyday, you feel me? On May 18th, 1979, Bob Danrich, who was the leading scorer of this Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Finals, leading his team with 37 points, 9 rebounds, and 5 assists. Danrich had hit a pull-up mid-range jump shot over 2 defenders against the San Antonio Spurs and the reigning scoring champion at that time, George Gervin, who had 42 in this game, I might add, to send the Bullets to their second back-to-back finals appearance following a championship season from the year prior. I know earlier in the video I said I wasn't going to go too back in the files to find some of these clutch shots, but believe it or not, the Washington Bullets were actually a powerhouse team of the 70s that really don't get spoken enough about how good they were at that time. To Toronto's clutchest playoff shot of all time, I think that shot really needs a little commentary, as it's one of the best playoff shots of all time, as it came in the Game 7 of a second round series against the best constructed Philadelphia team built around Ben Simmons and Embiid. Might have been out of bounds, might have traveled. There's a whole bunch of stipulations with the shit. Look, bro, it was part of one of the best finals runs of all time. And bro had 41 points on a career high 39 shots in this game. He was not letting them lose. Literally the only championship banner in Toronto Stadium, as it was the only season Kawhi had played there. Being traded there in a one-and-done season for All-Star DeMar DeRozan and countless playoff exits with him being the helm of the team. Granted that the only person that was stopping them from making the finals previously was LeBron, and he was out of the East this season. But it still doesn't change the fact that for Kawhi's 1 year in Toronto, you could not have written a better script for the year he had in 2019 and his journey to the finals. So next up, we got Milwaukee Bucks clutch's playoff shot. And initially for this decision, I was going to go with Kareem Skyhook over Boston in 1974 in Game 6 in a double OT thriller, where he shot his classic signature skyhook over 2 defenders to win the game. The play wasn't even originally drawn up for him, and it was reported that during this possession that he was actually looking for a teammate to pass to, but decided to get a bucket instead that ended up being the game winner to tie the series 3-3. But they eventually lost that series. So with my decision on this clutchest shot by the Milwaukee Bucks, I got Giannis's and one alley-oop dunk that he had in Game 5 against Phoenix, because at least that series resulted in a win for Milwaukee. And this without even mentioning that this play was followed by a very clutch defensive play stop from Giannis on an alley-oop attempt from DeAndre Ayton like a minute prior to this possession. This came with a very clutch Game 5 victory from Milwaukee, as Phoenix held a 2-0 lead, winning the first 2 games at home to start off the series, and Milwaukee storming back in the next 4 games to win the series in eventually 6 games. And it truly isn't spoken enough of how great of a final series Giannis had, considering it was his first finals appearance. Let alone that this was the series that started to shift the perception of who was the consensus best player in the league, averaging 35 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, shooting 62% from the field, while shooting 20% from 3 and 66% from the free throw line. And due to Giannis's lackluster shooting being one of his biggest weaknesses, that narrative was held to him as one of the biggest story downfalls and kept him as an underdog in most playoff series against competent defensive teams. June 5th, 1999, in Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals, with the playoff rivals back at it again, Larry Johnson hit one of the most iconic Knicks playoff shots in NBA history, where he gets a 4-point play on his defender, which would send them to their last appearance in the finals, where they went against the San Antonio Spurs, and would serve as a nice revenge series against the Indiana Pacers, who had sent them home packing in 5 in the previous postseason in the second round. On June 1st, 2004, in the Eastern Conference Finals against the #1 seeded Indiana Pacers, who had just notched their most successful regular season in franchise history with a record of 61-21. A prime Jermaine O'Neal, who was one of the better big men around the league at this point. Metta World Peace, who played a crucial role in their top 3 defense and was the reigning defensive player of the year this season. And an aging Reggie Miller, who was 1 foot out the door and about to retire, pushing 40 the next season. One of the most unexpected underdog champions of all time, the Detroit Pistons ended up closing out the Indiana Pacers in a crucial win in a Game 6 victory in the Eastern Conference Finals, coming off of an Eastern Conference Finals run in the postseason prior and getting swept by the New Jersey Nets on an extremely clutch catch-and-shoot opportunity for Tayshaun Prince. And prior to that shot, bro was shooting 2 for 11 from the field. Granted, they were already holding a 2-possession lead prior, but this shot was very essential in propelling them to the finals and pulling off one of the greatest upsets in finals history. And the final score in that Game 6 was dead 69-65. Like, bro, that's like a halftime score in the modern NBA. But anyways, that's a story for another day. As for June 18th of 2013, Ray Allen hit a shot that was widely remembered as one of the greatest shots that had ever saved LeBron James' legacy to this day. When a long jumper from LeBron is off, Chris Bosh, one of the most unsung heroes of that Big Three Miami era, grabs a very clutch offensive rebound and hits Ray Allen for the corner three. And I believe we all know what happens here, so I'll let the announcers finish the honors.
Ray did what he's done his entire career.
In the 1984 season, this was not only the first season that Larry Bird had won his first MVP, but would also make for the season where we seen one of the greatest NBA storied rivalries, finally getting the opportunity to match up in the NBA Finals for the first time. As clutch as Magic Johnson was known for being throughout the majority of his career, in this Game 4 of the 1984 NBA Finals, him and the Lakers would sell the bag in this overtime loss very heavily. With a tie score of 123 and 34 seconds left on the clock, Magic had a chance to give the Lakers at least a one-possession lead with 2 attempts at the free throw line, which he both missed. Very next play, coming out of a timeout, Larry Bird spends almost the whole possession fighting for positioning on his defender, and eventually that defender ends up being Magic late into the shot clock, and he hits one of the most historic playoff shots in Boston history. It's an effortless catch and shoot turnaround fadeaway jumper on Magic Johnson to give Boston a 2-point lead with leaving 16 seconds on the clock. What makes this loss even more gut-wrenching for the Lakers is the fact that they were up 2-1 prior to this game in the series, and the fact that James Worthy could have at least potentially tied the game had he hit his free throws on the following possession, where he got free throws with 2 attempts at the free throw line. All of that being said, he goes 1 for 2 at the free throw line. They play the foul game, and with another opportunity to change the fate of this game, they turn it over on an inbounds play, and the Celtics tied the series up at 2 apiece and go on to win the series eventually in 7 games. And not only does Larry Bird win his second NBA title, but becomes one of the 10 NBA players in NBA history to win a regular season MVP, a finals MVP, and an NBA title all within the same season. Now, if you're over the age of 10 and watch basketball pretty regularly, I guess, this is another one of those shots that really don't need much commentary, just for the simple fact that it was an ongoing meme for the summer of 2016 and 2017. With Kyrie's shot in Game 7 of the NBA Finals, not only was this part of one of the greatest comebacks in NBA history, as it was the first time we've ever seen a finals team give up a 3-1 lead, but this is also the best quote-unquote regular season team in the Golden State Warriors, who had a 73-9 season this year. This was also the season that we witnessed an NBA player be named a unanimous MVP for the first time in Stephen Curry, making it his second MVP in back-to-back years. Off of the strength of Golden State's success and Curry's performances this season, it was becoming widely recognized by NBA media that he was not only the best shooter of all time, but arguably the best player in the NBA, which added more flames to the fire of a wild point guard duel between him and Kyrie Irving. Kyrie was battling him toe for toe in a final series and actually outplaying him in certain games throughout the series. This is also a revenge series for the Cavs, as 2 of their best players were injured in the postseason prior, and LeBron had to backpack that roster to the finals to begin with in the 2015 season. In my opinion, that was most likely the best peak of LeBron's career, when he made a return back to Cleveland and was running the Eastern Conference for a few seasons. But with all of that being said, while there's hella storylines that can go down for that finals victory, but now it's time to speak on the final shot, the last dance. The shot that retired Michael Jordan from being a Chicago Bulls for the rest of NBA history. And in my opinion, is one of the greatest playoff shots of all time, and this video wasn't even sequenced in chronological order. But who better to speak on the experience and close out this video than the GOAT himself, Michael Jordan.
The Bulls can win it right here. The Bulls can win it. Unbelievable. 13 seconds left. Jordan left side.
I practice as if I'm playing in a game. So when the moment comes in the game, it's not new to me. That's the beauty of the game of basketball. That's the reason why you practice. That's the effort. So when you get to that moment, you don't have to think. Instinctively, things happen.
Jordan a drive. Hangs, fires, yes! The Bulls lead 87-86.
Michael Jordan with 45 points.
You know, I think it was a very defining moment of what my career was in Chicago.
The Chicago Bulls have won their 6th NBA championship.